Hello, welcome back to that Eurovision site, Eurovision with a slice of life. I'm Lewis. I'm joined by the wonderful
Molly, hello.
Molly. I realize you're gonna be on this side of the screen, not us. Anyway, um, and we're here to talk about Eurovision 2025. Now that we're 2 weeks away, everything's was then we've had 2 weeks to kind of decompress, and I think now is a good time to reflect. My experience was very different to yours, Molly, because I was literally in Basel experiencing Eurovision, and you're experiencing Eurovision on TV, obviously. Now that we've had 2 weeks, how do you reflect on Basel 2025 Eurovision?
I think compared to last year, it was a lot more sort of well organized, well
Hmm.
focused. It wasn't, and like Malmo was good in production, but it also felt like a little messy. Whereas like Basel sort of had itself organized, they kind of had everything sort of set in a way, and it made things run smoother. I think there were a lot of surprises, which I think this year was a year where it's like you like from the beginning, you can't predict what the final result is going to be. And even when there's songs that are like super popular, they could end up like anywhere in the final. It's all guns are blazing at that point. So
Yeah.
it's a year of you can't fully predict what is going to happen. I think that is a good this year is a very good example of that. Um
Yeah. I think whereas in previous years, we've had the contendership for the win kind of with I mean most notable example being Liverpool. It was basically a two-horse race.
yeah.
Basically there was only two contenders for the win. Last year maybe a little bit more open, but I think this year it was so widespread
Yeah.
that there wasn't much like yeah there was the contendership for the win kind of throughout the season just kept changing.
Yeah.
um when we saw more performances and more of what packages each country was delivering. um so yeah. um let's talk about the hosts. That's something I look forward to when it comes to Eurovision, the hosts and what they're going to deliver. And I have to say, I was in love with this year's host. Most notably Hazel. I think Hazel brought a unique sense of comedy to that trio. Yeah, what do you think of the hosts this year?
I think they added sort of like this lightness to it. There was a lot of sort of we haven't had it. I think it's interesting that we haven't had it back in Switzerland in years compared to something like Malmo, which had it like only a few decades ago beforehand. This has been years in advance, so it was a good way for Switzerland to reflect and grow. And I think
Mm,
that was something that was really special that Switzerland had, in my opinion, that we haven't seen in quite a while. Because even though the UK, when in 2023, it was a shared thing, whereas Ukraine had also had that thing where they'd won multiple times. Whereas this year really felt like a look back, a reflection, and a sort of growing, like sort of like this year, I think my how I'd call it is like a growing year. Like how do
mhm.
we go from now? How have we gone from where we were, like Celine Dion, to now? I think that was really lovely to see Switzerland reflect on that in a lot of ways.
First semi-final was like a callback to Celine Dion. It was lovely having um, the artists from last year get involved with that little tribute to Celine. It
Mm,
was lovely to even see Celine. We weren't sure what we were getting from
yeah.
Celine. There was a lot of rumor that she was flying into Basel. Obviously, that didn't happen. But it was nice that she still got involved to a degree with that lovely video message there. And yeah, I loved seeing Sylvester, Yolanda. Marina and Jerry involved in that little tribute there to Celine's winning entry. Um, Second semi-final, we had the entries from 2020 that didn't get to perform on a Eurovision stage because obviously lockdown meant
Yeah.
that the 2020 contest could not happen.
I think it.
Um,
Sorry, I don't mean to
yeah, you go
interrupt you.
ahead. No, no,
I
no.
think this interval was my favorite for me, one of my favorites in a while, because it felt like 20, like the artists of 2020, like coming to the end of that grieving process with their songs. They get to sort of see that final performance again on the Eurovision stage. It's like a sort of not just reclamation, but sort of like a nice little closer to that sort of
Yeah,
story. Whereas, like, if we didn't have that before, it felt like, oh, 2020 didn't happen. Like, it's kind of like a sad sort of like it was a
yeah,
grieving within the fandom. It was at the end of the day, it was like a sad grieving of something that didn't happen. Whereas now we get to sort of have yes, we will never see a full 2020 contest, but
no,
it's an idea of it, what we could have seen. And I think having that is the best that we're going to get. And I'm so glad that Switzerland actually gave that chance to the 2020 artists to actually come back and perform the best way they could, I think. And I think that was lovely. And I think I love Jean. I loved Jean's Tears in 2021, one of my
oh,
favorites, but that performance was gorgeous. Like I
it's the
loved it.
sleeves for me. The
Mm,
sleeves
that
with the
that
fire,
was
like
so good.
that was
And
so good.
it's just overall all of it felt like these artists were coming back just for another one more. Of course, we'll see them in the Eurovision circuit again,
I'm
probably in the
sure.
future.
Yeah,
But coming back and giving it one goodbye to the 2020 songs, let's
yeah,
say. Yeah, because we're not going to see
hmm,
those 2020s. We're going to hear them, we're going to stream them, of course, but
of course.
you're not going to see them fully performed in that effort again. So you're kind of just saying goodbye, and
Yeah,
it's bittersweet, but it's lovely to be
bittersweet.
able to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not at least not in an official Eurovision setting. I
No,
don't think we're gonna
100%.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. It was
Um.
what it could be, which the best
Exactly.
it could be, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Um. We're on the topic of that performance. I was surprising. Okay, yes, I love Jean's.
Mm,
I've always been a big fan of the group. I've been always a
yeah.
big fan of Destiny.
Mm.
Cleopatra by Effendi. I didn't
Yeah.
realize how. To be fair, I because of the way that the 2020 contest went, I hadn't personally listened to all the
Yeah.
2020 songs. I was familiar with Répondez-moi and On Fire, but Destiny's song and Effendi's song I
Yeah.
wasn't familiar with. I was a huge fan of Effendi's performance in that medley there. Yeah, I believe Cleopatra by Effendi has done really well since that performance.
Yeah.
Just virally, yeah. I think that, so. I love that. Shocked that that's the viral song of 2025,
Mm.
but
You're 100%. I think it's really fascinating how that song keeps coming back into the
uh-huh.
spotlight and shows how timeless it is. You can tell when a song is so timeless that it keeps coming back into the limelight even years later. Like it's years
Yeah.
later and I still hear Arcade like somewhere.
It's incredible. And then obviously the interval acts for the final, we had the Swiss medley. So we had
Mm,
everyone involved in that Swiss medley of Eurovision songs from Switzerland. And then we had Carrier and Baby Lasagna doing Eurodab. Well, it was like a cha-cha-cha versus Rim Tum
mm.
Tagadim, and then they closed with Eurodab. Um, I be honest, I did not expect Carrier and Baby Liz, and I'm not mad, but I did not expect them to get a final slot. I thought they were going to get a semi-final slot when they were announced as an interval act. So I'm quite surprised they got the final.
I think if I really think about it, like at the end of the day, I it's not fully surprising to me considering how popular compared to like winners of the contest, how popular Karia and
Oh
Baby
yeah.
Lasagna have been out of their respective contests, to give them that sort of final slot for the viewing, I could understand why they did that in a final because they're at the moment they bring like big like fans. They have quite a lot of fans at
Hmm.
the moment, so
They
seeing
do.
that it's understandable. The song, but I think the performance itself,
Oh, we're gonna fall out. I
I
am a
think
big fan of that song.
the performance itself, I think after I can understand that it after like the intervals that we had that were like somber,
Hmm.
reflectory and stuff, this brings the energy back into the content, into the sort of stadium. It makes everybody excited,
Yeah.
um brings back that energy that I think is really needed, especially in a grand final. I can't remember if it was like after when everybody performed or sort of in the middle, but when you've seen the art like the artists of this year perform and
Yeah.
then you get to see Eurodam, it's like, okay, bring it on. There's the pressure is sort of taken off, and I
That's true.
think I couldn't like even though I personally I think I can understand why it had such an impact and why it was placed in the
Okay.
final, personally.
Yeah, that's fair. I think for me, I probably would have preferred seeing the Celine tribute in the final,
Mm,
but I'm assuming that it was placed in semi-final one because I personally want to believe they were still trying to work something out with Celine in time for the final, and things just didn't.
yeah.
But who knows? That's my narrative, and I'm
No, I
running
get
with
that.
it. Let's talk about the actual, so the contest itself. Um, some surprising um non-qualifiers. Let's talk about that because
Yeah. Oh boy.
particularly in, particularly in semi-final two, I think there was a couple in semi-final
Yeah.
two I was very certain might actually make the final, and
Mm.
they didn't. I'm I'm gonna say Gojo.
Yeah, no, 100%. That surprised me. Like, I think just due to the popularity of the song itself, and again, this is my thing is a lot of the songs that didn't do as well were like really viral, which was really surprising. Like they had
Uh-huh.
so it there's this interesting disconnect between what is maybe it's like what's popular in the Eurovision space and what's popular online with a younger generation compared to what viewers are connecting to and what watchers are connected to. I think this was definitely evident this year. However, one song kind of broke through that, which I will discuss, but we'll discuss later. I think Gojo was interesting because I think it was uh very evident of this disconnect between what viewers wanted and what Eurofans and, the viral sort of space was looking at. And it was fascinating to see that. I think once I think about it, I can kind of understand a little bit, but it was still a shock. It's still a shock to me that that borderline didn't get through.
Yes, borderline indeed, and that's the most frustrating part because it was
Mm,
very, yeah, they were right. Yeah, Gojo was right there. I Another artist who I wasn't sure about them qualifying until I saw what they were delivering on stage in their presentation. Yet they still didn't qualify, and I was kind of shocked. Red Sebastian,
yeah,
I thought
yeah,
strobe
same.
lights, what Red Sebastian had delivered on stage was incredible,
Mm.
and honestly, I wasn't too hot on strobe lights until I saw it, and then I was like, okay, now I get it. Um, yeah, but still, it's interesting.
Interestingly, and we'll get to that. I was like that. I was like what you are with strobe lights with Austria, actually, and we can get to that a bit
Okay.
later.
Oh, we will be talking about
Yeah,
Austria.
strobe lights was one of my favorites. I saw the staging and I saw like the vocals, and I was like, oh, I feel like this is gonna qualify. And I think a lot of us were like shocked that it didn't happen. I think maybe people just weren't into like the heavy rave stuff, or like there was, I didn't know, I didn't feel like there was so much that was filling that gap though. Like maybe some people felt like there was enough to fill that spot that they didn't need strobe lights in there. Maybe that's the
Okay.
only way I can think about it, but I don't know. Like it's still one that I don't understand why it didn't get through at the end of the day. And especially it wasn't even at the borderline rate that Milkshake Man was, which is even more surprising to me.
Yeah. I, it's a shame. I like, yeah, maybe it was that there was other songs in that same palette that, yeah, definitely filled that gap. But yeah, I still felt like strobe lights. I
Yeah.
will give Red Sebastian and the Belgian delegation their flowers because um what what they delivered on stage was incredible. Um Considering that a lot of the elements of the staging in the Belgian selection wasn't going to be in Basel, I still think they delivered a stellar performance. Um, yeah, let's talk about the qualifier. Let's just talk about the final because we
Yeah.
could talk forever about
Yeah.
the qualifiers.
I was
Um,
going to mention one more thing though
oh, go ahead.
about staging versus like song and vocal. Cyprus is a big, good example of
Oh,
this.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, with that they built out this elaborate staging, but the vocally it wasn't there, and it was very much a question of is such elaborate staging going to be enough? And this is what I think about maybe what where it could have faltered Red Sebastian as well in the
Yeah,
fact that maybe people just like you didn't fully connect to the song and they didn't feel like having that elaborate staging was enough, so they to put their vote down.
right,
And this was seen evidently with Cyprus, where it didn't fully tie together. I'm just going to say it that way, and people were just like, no, and didn't vote for it. So it definitely shows that this year, no matter what, I think what performances I think we're going to see a lot more next year is pulling make state simpler staging but more work on songs and more work on vocal and simpler, you know, sets, I feel, because of what we're seeing this year. Especially that's what I think we may be getting a hint of.
yeah. Yeah, Theo's performance was interesting. I think I set myself up for bigger with Theo's performance just because of the way they were advertising it and they were teasing it. I was expecting like this huge like parkour like,
Mm,
like
yeah.
thing. So yeah, not quite. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think it's still quite an aerobic like workout, whatever. It's concerning when you get a performance that requires a workout. Like,
Yeah.
how are they going to sound? Are they gonna is this physical? Is the physical element going to suffer, or is the vocal element going to suffer to the physical element? Do you know what I mean? So
Mm. I think they just
um,
sort of threw too much at the wall, expecting the artist to stick and be perfect with so much happening that
yeah,
at the end of the day, it was like, no.
no. So yes, we go to the final.
Yeah.
Uh, I, I'm going to be honest. There was the results. Were interesting.
Yeah.
They were interesting. Um, I if you had told me even a month ago that the third place for 2025 was going to be Tommy Cash.
Yes, that one was very surprising. And I think like I said, this was one of the ones that I said earlier really broke that rule of virality equaling like success because I think
Uh-huh.
which is interesting in analysis in a way that some songs didn't meet that, whereas some really came through with that. I think some songs still had that hit, like I think Finland didn't have as much impact as we expected, but we've got to think at the end of the day, she came pretty high and did very well. I think that
Hmm.
impact did definitely show with her results. Maybe not as
Yeah.
much as we're expecting, but
No.
it definitely gave a good result at the end of the day.
I think this year has been the most interesting part of this year's Eurovision for me has been how almost polar opposite the juries and the public were
Oh gosh,
in
yeah.
terms of
Oh
opinion.
boy, yeah.
Yeah, we had, I mean, for one, we had the juries, and the jury vote just happened to be all over the place. Like, there was no real front. Okay, obviously, JJ was the front runner at the end of
Mm,
the jury vote, but still, it was quite scattered. 12, everyone and their mothers were getting 12 points. Like,
yeah. It was interesting. I think it was with JJ, I think the votes that he got compared to like what other winners have got other years really showed that the jury was so scattered out. Like they
hmm.
just the jury it's not that the juries couldn't agree, it's just that I think because this year was so varied in music, like music genres and musicality, which I really enjoyed about this year, the different types of genres, the different types of music. I am so glad we're getting that, and I'd love to see that more in the future. But that also does reflect on how spread out the juries are. And I think with a more diverse genre of categories, we're going to probably see more of that in the future because different juries, different countries are going to like different things. They're going to like,
Hmm.
some are going to be like more traditional, some are going to be more like, you know, Tommy Cash, like aesthetic. They're like out there, loud kind of thing. And I think this really was represented in the amount of votes they were, and also the amount of songs that were like, we had Bada Bada Bastu, we had
Hmm.
Erica Vickman, and
Yeah,
um, we had Espresso Macchiato, which were
espresso macchiato.
they were so different, but also they had. I'd say they were in a similar family in a way. Like they had
Yeah.
different flavors, but they're all similar. So I think
Uh-huh.
also like this reflected in where the juries were going within that as well. Um,
Mariana Conte.
Mariana Conte as well. Like all of them, I think this also represented in how scattered the televote was. Because usually in years we
Hmm.
have sort of like a set a person that has sort of like a set style and a set thing that most people gravitate to, whether
Uh-huh.
that be, more eccentric or more
Mm.
ballady, more strong type that. But we had multiple of that this year,
Yes.
so it went different places, which I think if we're going to see more of that, we're going to see more of a scattered jury vote. So I'm very bittersweet on how it went because as much as I love the amount of genres we had, it was going to reflect on scattered jury,
Yes,
in my opinion.
absolutely. Um, so that was interesting, but there was notably a few songs in the televote that did not perform as well as I thought they would,
Mm,
especially in the televote. There was a few songs that I was like, okay, this is probably going
yeah.
to hit a lot more in the televote than the jury.
Mm.
But then Malta, 10 points from the public,
Yeah,
and
that
I was
hurt.
like, that hurt, but also kind of shocked because I thought that that was
Yeah.
hitting, especially just because of the virality of it. Yeah.
I think watching this with like, a family member who like doesn't normally watch Eurovision was so good to have because it was like disconnected from my whole bubble, and it was interesting to see how that sort of like not really my thing reaction. And when seeing that, I was like, okay, maybe Miriana Conte isn't connecting as much to the everyday viewer as the Eurovision bubble was expecting. And I think this is what was seen in a lot. I think this is what reflected a lot of like the lower votes in the more abrasive songs is that
Yeah.
people are everyday viewers are probably not really into that as much anymore, and they're
No.
going towards the more like, okay, this is fun, but this is like and some are going to the more like traditional ballady stuff like JJ or things like that. And because there's so many songs, again, the ice cream analogy,
Mm-hmm.
family of ice cream, because there's so many different flavors, people are going towards their different picks. So they're like, oh, I'm gonna go to Badababastu, oh, I'm gonna go to serving, oh, I'm gonna go to Ikome, like all this lot.
Mm-hmm.
So some songs are going to get less votes than others because more people prefer that one over that one, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about JJ. Austria, our winner. Um, I mean, it was a favorite, quite a favorite when it got dropped. For a good chunk of time, Kai was leading the odds. But yes, JJ ended up winning. Uh, there was people who were quite certain this might not have happened because people were making comparisons to Nemo just because of the operatic element. Um, Still, I argue JJ is a very different product to
Mm,
the code. But yeah, I think this proves how pivotal the jury is
yeah.
in the Eurovision. Yeah.
So, yeah, in Cliff Notes, it was very good. I think the staging, it really grew on me as soon as I saw it on TV at Eurovision. I think that staging and that sort of cinematic style is what sold it to people. And that
Hmm.
story and the vocals and people were immediately like, I like this, let's go. And especially the jury, I think it was definitely a song, one of the small amount of songs that were designed to hit jury. And I
Hmm.
think so many songs were going for televote that the the this one had such a clear goal to hit where it needed to, and it did with the jury.
Hmm. We're in this interesting stage in Eurovision where the winner of the Eurovision Song Contest is not hitting with the public as much as the jury. I am interested to see if that's going to be a trend moving forward, where the winner of the Eurovision is not the winner of the televote, but rather the winner of the jury. Um, I'm interested to see what kind of because it's again the espresso macchiato. Are we going to see another eccentric, fun song like that? I Do you know what I think? I think if it weren't for Kai
Yeah.
being sent in Sweden, and I don't know if you've, there's a few people saying it. If it weren't for Kai being sent in Melody Fest, and if we got someone like a Måns Zelmerlöw in Basel, I think that would have probably taken some jury votes away from JJ
Yeah.
into the Sweden pocket, and we might be looking at an Estonian
Yeah,
Eurovision.
I think that's what's fascinating. I think I'm just gonna say if things had been different, I'm not gonna mention, I think Estonia would have gotten way more points and we may have had either Estonia higher or an Estonia win
Right.
if things were different.
Hmm.
And I think that is fascinating to me because again there was this really big split with Espresso Macchiato, but people, a lot of people were saying Tommy Cash knows what he's doing in the marketing. Like he
Hmm.
knows how to stir
Oh
an
yeah.
audience, and clearly it worked. And I think what's interesting is I think it's going to be interesting to see whether because of JJ winning, whether we're going to get more people uh
Do, doing the
send
opera
more
thing.
songs that suit the jury than the
Right. Oh
televote.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
true.
and then we're gonna get a vice versa thing that we did this year where a televote song, because there's more in jury appealing to jury, a televote song pierces through and gets it. So who knows?
Who knows? Well, only time will tell. Thank you, Molly, for joining me. Again, if you haven't already, please go follow that Eurovision site on all of our socials. Links should be below. We got YouTube, we've got Facebook, we got X, we've got Blue Sky, we've got Instagram, and I feel like I'm missing something, but
Spotify. For that Eurovision podcast, we've got
yes,
Spotify as well.
yes, perfect.
On all the
Well,
socials, you can find us.
all the socials, all the
Yeah.
socials. Thank you all for watching, and go watch another one of our videos.